It is deep into the overnight hours in Israel and Iran, well into a night of more strikes and counterstrikes by each on the other. And just moments ago, a senior Iranian official threatened to target the regional bases of any country that defends Israel, which, of course, the United States already is. In just the last several hours, air raid sirens have sounded in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and reportedly in the southern Israeli city of Eilat, followed a short time ago by the all clear. CNN's Orrin Lieberman was on the air in the middle of it.
And we just saw a launch right behind us.
In Iran, air defenses around Tehran have gone active. It seems like that one Iranian official's promise of a, quote, dark night ahead for Israel is coming to pass, or at least a tense and difficult one, as is this from Israel's prime minister.
More is on the way. The regime doesn't know what hit them. They don't know what will hit them.
Benjamin Netanyahu leveled that threat in the middle of earlier missile strikes by Iran on Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and elsewhere. Much of it was blunted by Israeli and American air defenses, all of which followed Israel's audacious strike on Iranian nuclear targets, nuclear scientists, and some of the country's top military commanders overnight, involving some 200 jets and hitting more than 100 targets so far, according to the IDF. Now, some of it was carried out, according to Israeli intelligence, from a drone base set up inside Iran, which is a remarkable feat given the repressive surveillance state Iran has long been. Now, what you're seeing is some Mossad video of some of that activity. The operation was designed, they say, to take out air defenses and hit air bases before Iranians could shoot down Israeli Air Force planes or scramble interceptors. However, it was accomplished. The first strike decapitated Iran's military leadership, at least four top military leaders. The commander of the elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the head of the Armed Forces, General Staff, the Revolutionary Guard's Aerospace Forces chief. Iran also says 6 top nuclear scientists were killed, including the man you see here, who once led Iran's Atomic Energy Organization. As for the nuclear facilities targeted, Iran is minimizing the damage done. However, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency told the UN Security Council today that Israel managed to destroy the above-ground uranium enrichment plant in Natanz, and says Iranian authorities have notified the IAEA that facilities at Fordo and Isfahan were also hit. Now, earlier today, President Trump weighed in with 2 social media postings on the as yet unproductive U.S.-Iranian nuclear talks in a post that also offers Iran an off-ramp if they make a deal. Quoting now from the president, 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just couldn't get there. Now they have perhaps a second chance. Another post an hour earlier was darker, with the president warning, quote, Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left. Joining me right now, CNN's Jerusalem Bureau Chief, Orrin Lieberman. Orrin, what are you seeing, hearing at this hour? What's the latest here?
Well, Anderson, it's worth pointing out that this is pretty much the 24-hour mark from where this all started during your show yesterday as we hopped on air at the beginning of the first wave of Israeli strikes. That has very much continued, according to Iranian state media, with more strikes in and around Tehran occurring just a short time ago. Meanwhile, we have seen just a short time ago from this very spot a third wave of incoming Iranian ballistic missiles that once again essentially sent off red alerts across the country and once again forced many Israelis and many citizens into bomb shelters here. We even saw interceptors launched right behind us, saw what appeared to be intercepts, and certainly heard perhaps 10, a dozen, or maybe even more intercepts in the skies behind us. Those incredibly loud, thunderous booms can be heard for miles, saw falling shrapnel, with both Israel and Iran essentially promising one another and vowing to the wider world that this isn't over yet. Perhaps it is just beginning here as we see more strikes from Israel carried out in Iran, and Iran promising to carry out more ballistic missile launches against Israel. We saw that begin with drone attacks much earlier in the day, but now Iran promising there will be more ballistic missile strikes to make sure that Israelis don't have a quiet night. And that's very much what we have seen playing out over the course of the past several hours here. According to Israel's emergency responders, 7 injured in the latest round of Iranian attacks. But again, Anderson, this could very well just be the beginning. Even if it's not ground troops fighting, it is very much an air war here.
And Orrin, I just want to be clear, because we're showing video from earlier today When was the last time there was incoming from Iran to Israel, hitting either taken out by Iron Dome or actually hitting on the ground, whether it be Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or elsewhere?
I think it was just about an hour and a half ago. It is 3:05 local time here. It was right around 1:15 local time, maybe a little after that, that red alarm and red alert sirens went off, not only in Jerusalem, but we could hear them throughout the surrounding area. And we saw interceptors fired off behind us and saw incoming as well.
We mentioned the threat from Iran to target regional assets belonging to any countries that help Israel. Interesting, because last night the initial statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which was the first statement we heard from the administration, was essentially pointing out that the U.S. was not aware of this, not involved in it. Clearly, that posture seems to have changed now. What more do you know about what the threat is coming from Iran right now about hitting other regional partners?
Well, the U.S. statement was it seemed very carefully worded, that the U.S. had not taken part in the offensive side of this. Israel was acting on its own. But we know, having talked to U.S. officials, that the U.S. was very much helping Israel on the defensive side. Once there was incoming, there are U.S. THAAD batteries, also U.S. Patriot missiles stationed across the region, and it seems some of that helped intercept the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. So it seems that's where the Iranian threat is pointed. Yes, there are other countries that make up what U.S. Central Command created, which is a network of detection and interception. Other countries take part in that as well, not just the U.S. and Israel, some of the Arab states too. But it doesn't seem like that's where Iran is really pointing the threat. It seems like Iran is threatening U.S. bases in the region, and of course there are significant bases. Fifth Fleet is based in Bahrain, Air Force Central Command is based in Qatar, and then there are U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria that have come under fire from Iran-backed proxies there. It seems that's where Iran is pointing this threat. The U.S. has already threatened back, essentially, and said if Iran attacks U.S. forces, then the threat of U.S. getting involved becomes a very real possibility here. So that's what we're watching as this develops past the 24-hour mark.
Oren, we'll continue to check in with you throughout this hour. Joining me right now is CNN Chief White House Correspondent and anchor of The Source, Caitlin Collins. Kate, what are you hearing from White House officials?
Well, what Oren just laid out there is a key part of this that they are very closely watching at the White House, which is whether or not Iran does go after U.S. personnel or U.S. interests inside the region, and whether or not that does pull the U.S. further inside of this. It's actually a debate that has kind of been roiling President Trump's world today, the MAGA world today, at least some people who do not want to see the U.S. get more involved in this, while others are saying that the United States should be there to assist Israel as it defends itself from Iran. The question is whether or not that goes further than this. And Anderson, we did hear from President Trump today praising these strikes as excellent from Israel on Iran last night, even though just hours before he had publicly been saying he did not want to see Israel strike Iran because he was worried that it would derail those diplomatic talks that have been happening, those talks about a nuclear deal between the United States and Iran. There's supposed to be another meeting on Sunday about that, and we still haven't gotten really a clear answer as to whether or not that is still going to go forward. The president, was not in front of cameras today. He spent most of it basically on the phone and in meetings with advisors behind closed doors today. He convened his national security team inside the Situation Room for well over an hour earlier today. And, I was in the halls of the West Wing. I saw his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, going from meeting to meeting. And so obviously there's been a lot of activity happening at the White House as they have been watching this. But it is a notable turn to see the president praising this strike so much and just how far-ranging it was after very publicly he had been signaling that Israel should not take this step as he wanted to try to achieve a deal first. And so we'll see, of course, what is the next step here and what's going to happen. As I should note, just in the context of all of this, Trump is preparing to go to Canada on Sunday night. He's meeting with world leaders at a summit there. And so obviously this will be a key issue and how this develops over the next few days.
Yeah, Caitlin Collins, thanks very much. Joining me now is CNN Global Affairs analyst Brett McGurk. He's a former Middle East and North Africa coordinator for the National Security Council, also CNN National Security Analyst, former Deputy Director of National Intelligence Beth Sanner, CNN Political and Foreign Policy Analyst Barak Ravid, and CNN Jerusalem correspondent Jeremy Diamond. Barak, what do you make of the targets that Israel has hit so far that we know about, both the facilities that they have chosen to strike and also the ones that they haven't, and the targeting of scientists, top military commanders?
Good evening, Anderson. I think what we can see clearly from the last 24 hours is that Iran has taken a hit. It has taken a big hit, mainly because Israel's strikes are very pinpointed. It's based on intelligence. It's based on precision, and that's why it really hurt the Iranians, because Israel had a list of 25 top military commanders and nuclear scientists. I think at least 80% of those were eliminated.
But it's not just that they.
Strike.
It's not just that they had the list. They also had their locations. I mean, they must have had the most up-to-date, location on. They must have had eyes on these people in one way or another. It's extraordinary. I mean, one of these guys is the guy they tried to kill back in 2010 with this sticky bomb on his car.